Now, I've discussed before.
How can anyone, whether they want to work in a language school or privately from their own laptop anywhere in the world, create a rewarding and impactful career teaching English as a second language, even if they are just starting out or have no teaching experience or ability? Hi, my name is Lynette Kim, and here on the TESOL Talk podcast, I aim to answer that very question.
For the importance of teachers' body language in the classroom, but we haven't really touched on students' body language and how we should be monitoring this as ESL teachers. And it is really important because it gives you like a thermometer to view your class. You can see the mood, if the class is warm or if it's cold, if students are warm or cold, how things are going. Now, you're going to know when something isn't going right. You'll be able to sense it. It's obvious, but you need to, the obvious signs that you should be looking for, you want to pick these up early and adjust your class however appropriately that needs to be done. But what we're going to talk about here is just what you've got to look for, those signs that start telling you that something's not going right. So with students' body language, bad things that you don't want to have happening if you start seeing these things. Number one, head tilting. This isn't so bad. Head tilting, it can just mean the students aren't sure. They're looking at you and they're like needing more information, needing more instruction or demonstration. So just be aware, tilting head, it's a sign. It's a first sign. They're not frustrated, but they just don't know. So you need to add more. You can't ignore that and just go, okay, go ahead and do the activity. That wouldn't be good. Then you lead to frustration. The next thing to watch out for is students tapping or kicking their feet or swinging their feet under the chair. So you can see this. You can just see their feet swing backwards and forwards, or someone's tapping a foot or tapping, their knees bopping up and down, this sort of stuff. Now, I know that some people have this as a nervous thing and they'll do it, but generally it shouldn't be happening too much, and it shouldn't be happening if a particular student doesn't have that kind of an issue. This indicates frustration. Students are just like, come on, let's get to it, let's get moving. Usually it means that things are going too slowly and students are getting frustrated, or they're not getting answered, or they're just not enjoying what's happening. So you need to change things up. Another thing, which is even more obvious, is swinging on chairs, swinging on the back of the chairs. Now, some students just do this. They're like the naughty kids in class, and you have to stop them because, work health and safety, they could have an accident. But it usually indicates that they're bored or they're just disinterested, and they're actually going to this greater length to communicate that to you. You really want to take notice if this is happening. Another thing you'll see is students just looking around or looking out the window. They're looking around. Now, one of the things it can mean is that they're unsure and they're looking at other people. They're questioning something that maybe it was an instruction or something. They didn't quite hear what they had to do or missed something. So that can be the case. If you see students looking around, looking at each other, then you might need to think about re-explaining something because they're unsure. But if they're looking around like a little bit listfully, and they're looking out the window and they're daydreaming, they're totally bored, and you really need to be nipping that in the bud. The next one is if they're whispering to each other. You don't want this because it's very distracting for the class and it's not really good manners. And whispering means that they're talking about something either that they don't like in the class, or the class isn't engaging enough that they're talking about something outside of the class. Either way, not good. So they're not following and they're treating the information in the class a bit like it's irrelevant. So again, you haven't grabbed their attention enough, and you might need to look at how you're going to do that. So there is good body language though. Have no fear. So good things that you'll notice when things are going really, really well. And you want to look for these tells as well. So when students are sitting forward and their eyes are on you, the teacher, like they're sitting forward, they're engaged, they're making eye contact with you, they are hanging on what you're saying, every word. Also, another thing that actually sort of surprised me when it first started happening was when they started taking pictures of the whiteboard. The first time students got out cameras and started taking taking pictures because, I was teaching before mobile phones. That's telling my age now. It was a bit daunting. It's like, what are you guys doing? But instead of just taking notes, they like to take pictures of the whiteboard and go home and review those. So this and taking notes is a good sign. And the next thing is nodding. They're nodding in agreement. You're explaining something, they're getting it. You see the little heads nodding, and they're like, those little aha moments. Got it. This is a really good sign. So watch for that. Now, there are things too that they will do and say. They'll ask questions. When students are willing to ask questions, they are questions that extend what you teach them. So they've gotten the point, they've understood it, and now they're going to ask a question that actually takes that one step further. That's a really good sign. And if they're questioning how to use something in everyday life or life skills, even better. So when they're contributing, even that you didn't ask for it, they're putting their hands up and they're adding something to what you're saying. This is great. Don't ever knock this back. This is what you want to see, that students are so engaged in the lesson that they're automatically contributing. Fabulous stuff. Now, pair and group work is another area where you've got to look at their body language. So the good stuff, when you've got the students in pairs, what are they supposed to be doing? Talking. So they're chatting, they're engaged, they're looking at each other, making eye contact with each other. Good. They're animated. They're into it. Oh, even better. This means that they're actually invested in the topic and the relevancy of the task. Really good sign. They're sitting up straight, or they're kind of hunched over and a little bit more of an intimate position. That's fine too, because sometimes the class can get noisy. So they're doing this so they can hear better. Again, very good. So another thing that's fabulous when you've got higher level students is when you see them using gestures and body language and expressions on their face when they're speaking, and all of this is happening correctly. Really good signs. Now, some things in parent group work that you will notice and you need to deal with is if they're not talking or not talking very much, something's amiss. You need to find out what's going on. If it's too easy, too difficult, they just aren't getting it, and you need to nip that in the bud. If they're just sitting back, again, they're just saying, nah, not doing this. So this is something you really need to nip in the bud. If they're just looking around, listfully in their own minds, in their own heads, again, they're not doing the task. This isn't great, so you need to adjust what you're doing. If they're fidgeting or on their phones, again, this is body language signs warning you that, hey, I'm just off on my own little tangent here, and I'm going to stay here unless you bring me back, because that's what your job as a teacher is. So just remember, students' body language is just as important to note as them completing tasks. So you need to keep an eye on this, nip things in the bud early, be aware and look for the signs. Don't ignore them. Like, yes, you will see them, but you need to deal with them, and you need to know how to deal with them and deal with them quickly.